Here is the uncomfortable truth about the greatest love story ever told. They never got married. In fact, by the standards of a modern romance novel, this story ends in tragedy. The boy leaves, the girl stays behind, they spend the rest of their lives physically apart, and yet millions of people for thousands of years have looked at this specific separation and called it the absolute perfection of romance. Why? Because the story of Radha and Krishna isn't about two people falling in love. It is about a single soul, split into two bodies, desperately trying to find its way back to itself. This isn't Romeo and Juliet. This is something far older, far deeper, and honestly, far more complex. It is a narrative that challenges everything we think we know about relationships, about possession, and about the nature of the divine. Today, we are not just telling a story, we are decoding a spiritual map. We are going back to the ancient groves of Vrindavan to witness a love that breaks the rules of physics, defies the laws of society, and teaches us the brutal, beautiful art of surrender. You have to understand the setting before you can understand the story. Imagine a place where the laws of reality are suspended, Vrindavan. In the texts, it's described not just as a village, but as a sensory paradise, an endless spring where the air vibrates with the hum of bees, and the water of the Yamuna River isn't just water, it's liquid devotion. This is the stage. And on this stage, the universe decided to play a game. Enter the players. On one side, you have Krishna, the eighth avatar of Vishnu, the Paramatma, the Supreme Soul, the source of all energy. And on the other side, you have Radha. She is a simple cowherd girl, but metaphysically, she is the Shakti. She is the energy itself. If Krishna is the fire, Radha is the heat. You cannot have one without the other. Their story is the ultimate lesson in bhakti, or devotion. It's a blueprint for how the human soul, that's you and me, relates to the universe. It starts with a collision, not a cosmic bang, but a quiet moment between children. The texts describe a scene near the riverbank in Gokul. Krishna, the mischievous boy who charmed an entire village, is playing by the water. He hears footsteps. He looks up. He sees his friend Lalita, but then he sees her Radha. We need to unpack this moment. This wasn't love at first sight in the way we see in movies. This was a recognition event. It's like looking in a mirror for the first time and finally recognizing your own reflection. The scriptures say the universe held its breath. In that split second of eye contact, a dormant connection that had existed for eternity suddenly woke up. They spoke, they smiled, and in that innocence, a bond was forged that was so absolute, so unbreakable, that history would eventually fuse their names together. You literally cannot say Krishna in this tradition without the echo of Radha. It was the seed that would grow into a forest. As the villagers moved to the lush forests of Vrindavan, this connection entered its golden age. This is the part of the story that feels like a dream. The Leelas, the divine plays. They grew up together, and their romance became the heartbeat of the forest. And central to this was the sound, the flute. You have to imagine the sound of Krishna's flute not as music, but as a summons, a broadcast frequency that only the soul can hear. He would stand under the kadamba trees, put the bamboo to his lips, and play. For the villagers, it was beautiful music, but for Radha, it was a command. It was a direct line to her nervous system. It pulled her and the other gopis, the cowherd maidens, out of their homes and into the woods. This is where the theology gets fascinating. Why does God play like a human? Why the games? Why the hide and seek? It's to show us that the divine isn't just a distant judge sitting on a cloud. The divine is a friend, a lover, a child. It's approachable. Radha and Krishna's relationship during this time wasn't about awe and fear, it was about intimacy. It was about teasing, laughing, and sharing silence. It was the Atma, the soul, dancing with the Paramatma in a state of perfect equality. Now, there is a question that skeptics always ask. If this love was the pinnacle of perfection, why no wedding? Why no ritual? The answer is profound. The texts, specifically the Brahma Vaivarta Purana, mention a secret ceremony in the Bandirvan forest, witnessed by the Creator, Lord Brahma himself. But it wasn't a marriage in the social sense. Krishna's explanation for avoiding a worldly wedding shatters our modern understanding of relationships. He essentially says, marriage is a union of two separate entities, but we are not two, we are one. How can I marry my own soul? A wedding would imply there was a time we weren't together. Their union didn't need a contract because it was an eternal fact of existence. It was a marriage of spirits that bypassed human approval entirely. This concept culminates in the most famous and perhaps most misunderstood event in their history, the Rasa Leela, the dance of divine love. Picture a full moon night in autumn. The flute plays. The call goes out. Radha and the gopis drop everything, their chores, their families, their societal duties, and run to the forest. This is the moment of surrender. They are prioritizing the divine call over the rules of society. When they arrive, Krishna dances. But he doesn't just dance with the group. He performs a miracle. He expands himself. He multiplies his form so that every single gopi feels like Krishna is dancing with her and her alone. This is a staggering metaphor for God's attention. The divine is infinite enough to be personal with every single one of us simultaneously. But, and this is crucial, even as he danced with everyone, his focus was anchored on Radha. She was the center of the mandala. She represents the Mahabhava, the highest possible state of love. The dance is the physical manifestation of the soul merging with the divine rhythm. But every high must have a low. The ecstasy of Vrindavan was destined to be broken. Krishna was not just a cowherd, he was an avatar with a job to do. He had to kill the tyrant King Kamsa. He had to restore righteousness. Destiny was knocking, and it was telling him to leave Vrindavan. The news of his departure shattered the village, but the interaction between Radha and Krishna at this moment is the most heartbreakingly beautiful part of the entire saga. It wasn't a scene of screaming or begging, it was a scene of silence. Radha, who loved him more than her own life, understood his purpose. And because her love was selfless, meaning she cared more about his mission than her happiness, she let him go. She didn't build a cage out of her love. She gave him wings. That is the ultimate test of devotion. Can you love something enough to let it leave? As he climbed onto the chariot to ride to Mathura, he left his heart in Vrindavan, and he took her soul with him, and he left her one final gift, the flute. Legend says that as Krishna left Vrindavan, he handed his flute to Radha and promised her that he would never play it again. And he didn't. The king of Dwarka never played the flute. The statesman of the Mahabharata never played the flute. That music belongs strictly to Vrindavan. The silence of the flute was a symbol that his inner joy, his playful spirit, remained with Radha. The music didn't stop. It just went internal. This brings us to the hardest lesson of this story, viraha, the agony of separation. In our world, separation is bad. We fix it. We avoid it. But in this spiritual context, separation is a higher state than union. When Krishna left, Radha didn't move on. She didn't get over it. Instead, she used the pain of that separation to fuel an intense, constant remembrance. Because he wasn't there physically, she had to find him internally. Her love turned inward. She began to see him in everything. The dark water of the river looked like his skin. The rustle of the leaves sounded like his footsteps. The landscape of Vrindavan became a living hallucination of Krishna. There is a story where a messenger comes to comfort her, trying to give her a message from Krishna. She refuses the message. She says, "Where is the space for a message? My entire mind, my entire being is already so full of Krishna that there is no room for anything else." This is the paradox. Through physical separation, she achieved total, uninterrupted union. She didn't need his body because she had his essence. She became so absorbed in him that the line between Radha and Krishna vanished. So, how does this story end? It doesn't. That's the point. While Krishna went on to speak the Bhagavad Gita and rule kingdoms, his spirit never left the groves of Vrindavan. Some traditions speak of a final reunion years later, where an aged Radha meets the King Krishna, and her soul simply merges back into his light. But the physical ending doesn't matter. The story of Radha and Krishna is a manifesto. It tells us that true love isn't about possession. It isn't about a marriage certificate. It is about a surrender so deep that you lose your ego and find the divine. It teaches us that God is waiting to be loved, not just worshipped. And it promises that even in the deepest silence, even in the most painful separation, the flute is still playing if only we are quiet enough to hear it.